The federal government has unveiled plans to double the country's trade volume with Brazil from the current $9 billion to $18 billion by 2015. This was disclosed by the Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff after a closed-door meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan. The Minister of Trade and Investment, Olusegun Aganga, said both countries have agreed to strengthen trade and investment ties by leveraging areas where they had comparative and competitive advantage. Aganga noted that the trade volume between both countries has increased significantly over the years. He added that Brazil is Nigeria's #3 trading partner in terms of crude oil exports after United States and India. Stakeholders have urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to restrict merchant banking to its statutory role as they began operation in the country. According to them, allowing merchant banks to carry out roles outside their briefs will negate the essence of their resuscitation. AIT's Nkiru Nwokedi in this report takes a look at the return of merchant banking in Nigeria and its economic benefits.
About 13 years ago, there were many merchant banks in the country specialized in wholesale banking transactions. The banks fizzled out of the system within 1 year after the universal banking operation policy was introduced, affecting the activities of the banks.
Merchant banks have their own unique market focus, as different from commercial banks or universal banks. So we've always had merchant banks before the advent of universal banking and before the capitalization program of 2005.
Aside the universal banking challenges, the merchant banks also face the problem of access to the clearing houses, freedom to generate free funds, payment of huge current account turnover charges to commercial banks, among others.
The merchant banks had to clear their checks to the commercial banks, and the commercial banks were now poaching all the customers of the merchant banks. That was how the government started. So most of the customers of the merchant banks were going to the commercial banks, and that was how the number of the commercial banks started converting, because they needed to do business.
With the issuance of the operating license to 2 merchant banks, that is, South Africa First Rand Bank and Nigeria's First Security Discount House Limited, to commence operation following the scrapping of the universal banking model, the worry for some stakeholders in the banking sector is whether the Apex Bank will be able to properly manage the activities of these new merchant banks.
The disclaimed case is the regulator not being able to match the capacity of the operator. It's not enough to give out licenses, but you should have or grant people to monitor whatever objective the license you give out is meant for.
Even in those days, merchant bank were very assisting, and now they come back. There will be a sign of competition between merchant bank and other bankers.
Industry players also urge the regulators to ensure that these banks are restricted to their areas of specialization.
When we call policy inconsistency, they don't help. You know, in the merchant bank, you don't stay, then you can survive with it, then you cannot let them get out. So this policy flip-flop is not helping the economy.
With that, as you know, banking is banking. Universal, commercial, at the end of the day, we are talking of return on investment.
Meanwhile, the 2 merchant banks issued operating licenses have commenced operations with a required capital base of 15 billion naira. Nkiru Nwokedi, AIT News, Lagos.